Good morning. This morning we're going to have a look at dyeing with your rust dye formula and using the Reactor crystals. So let's have a look at what we need to get this going. So here we've got a jar with some water in it, just ordinary tap water will do. I'm using rainwater. Then we've got a spoon. As long as you don't want to use it for eating again, any kind of spoon will do. Then we've got an ordinary domestic household paintbrush. Okay, you can see how this has actually affected the paintbrush, so it's never going to do any ordinary painting again. We've got the rust dye dark here today. You can also do this with the bright, but I'm using the dark because we're going to get a really quick reaction out of it. The bright just takes that little bit longer. Then we've got the star of the day. This bag here is the Reactor crystals themselves. One of the techniques we're doing, going to do some tie dyeing, so you need something to tie it up with. We've got trusty rubber bands, or you can use some string or crochet cotton, whatever you prefer. If you use the crochet cotton, of course that's going to get dyed too, and then you'll be able to use that in your work as well. Then you've got your choice of fabric. Here I've just got some basic cotton that's left over from an old curtain. Second-hand cottons, old bed sheets, things like that are great because they're going to take the colour really quickly. If you're using new fabrics, don't forget to give them a wash first to get out any nasties that have been put on there to prepare the fabrics that might stop the colour getting onto the fabrics for you. And then really importantly, we've got a pair of gloves. Now this is going to stop you ending up the same colour as your fabric, but it's also going to stop the Reactor crystals getting onto your skin. Now they are an irritant, and it's not going to be nice if you get them onto your skin, especially before they've dissolved into the water. So make sure you're wearing your rubber gloves, definitely for the first stage of the process, but unless you want to get lovely black coloured hands when you're working with the dark, don't forget to keep your gloves on. So I'm going to don my gloves and then we're going to get on with the next stage of the process. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put the Reactor crystals in the water. So we're just going to take a spoonful to start off with and drop it into your water and give it a stir. We're looking for a nice strong orange colour. If it's not orangey enough, give it another spoonful. Don't worry if the crystals in your packet go a little bit orange. That's looking nice and orange in there now. I'm going to pop the bag off to one side. Okay, a little bit undissolved at the bottom. I'm going to give it another stir. Now we're going to take our fabric. Now you can pre-wet it first, you don't have to. With this one I'm going to work with it dry. The first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this straight on to your fabric. So I'm using a nice wide paintbrush, gets it on nice and quickly. Okay, so we've painted the Reactor crystal solution across the fabric. Now if we take the rust dye dark and we spray it, you'll see that where the two touch, you get an instant reaction. So if we do it the other way round, if we we spray the rust dye on first. And then we can just drip this on afterwards. You can see how you get a much more controlled effect, and you can even start to paint shapes and forms onto your fabric, which is giving you a dyed painterly effect. Very, very simple, absolutely instantaneous, very easy to control. And because it's dry, you're not getting any spread at all. Now obviously if you work onto wet fabric, you're going to get a much greater spread with it. It's a bit like when you're working with watercolours. If you work wet in wet, you get a different response. So if I pop this off to one side, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to wet down my third piece of fabric. Okay, I've taken the gloves off for this next stage because it's difficult with gloves on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the middle here. The fabric's already been wetted, and then I'm going to take the rubber bands and I'm going to tie them around at regular intervals. The idea is to create a resist and create folds in the fabric, so there are areas where the dye that we're putting on can get to, and there are areas where the dye can't get to. So we're going to end up with some of the fabric remaining this colour, and some of the fabric will change to the new colour that we're putting on. Okay, so we'll stick with that. I'm going to put my gloves back on because this is definitely one where you dye your own hands if you don't. Now the way round I find most effective to do this is to paint on your Reactor crystal water first and then give it a spray. The Reactor crystal water then has a chance to penetrate down into the fibres, and then you can put your rust dye formula spray over the top. Now again, we're going to do this with the dark just because you'll see the reaction faster, but it will work equally well with the bright. It just takes a little bit longer to happen. The reason being, just like you'll have seen when you're working with the bright and the dark with rusty objects, the bright takes longer to oxidize. It's just a slightly slower process with that. It likes to air for longer, and it will just take a little bit longer to give you that result. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to paint it down. Give it a chance, keep it nice and wet, a chance to soak into those fibres. Part of tie dyeing is allowing your dye to actually get through the fibres. There's nothing stopping you actually painting the dark solution on as well. You could decant a little bit off into a pot and paint that on too, if you really wanted to get a deep colour further through into the bundle. Okay. You'll see when the reaction happens whether or not you've got it all. So we're going to get our spray now, and we're going to spray it on. So you can see straight away where you've managed to get that Reactor Crystal water, because you can see the colour change. So if you've missed any bits, you can go back and get it on. And the best bit is here, you can roll that around now on your surface, and that'll help push it through the fibres, and you can see that colour getting darker. Really glorious colour. Now, depending on the fabrics that you use this with will depend on the colours you get. We've seen that before when we've been using rusty objects. Now this today is coming out a really nice kind of bluey shade. And keep soaking in all that liquid. Now, because obviously you're going to want to see what happens, I'm going to open this up, but you're going to be sensible and you're going to wait. And you're going to leave it to really soak through and give it a chance to really penetrate down into the fibres, get in there and make a much nicer, more variegated mark. But for the sake of showing you what's happened, what we're going to do now is we're going to open this up and see what's going on inside. This is not going to be easy with the gloves on, bear with me. But I am not turning my fingers blue, not today. Once this gets on your skin, this blue, it is really hard to get it off. Okay, so you can start to see the lines there as the rubber band comes off. I'm sure you all remember doing tie-dye at some point in your life. The official term for this actually is shibori. It's a Japanese process, and it simply means creating some form of resist in your dyeing process. So it doesn't have to be rubber bands, they're just nice and easy. You can use rope, you can use string, you can use wooden blocks. Any way of stopping that dye getting to part of your fabric to create a pattern on your fabric. Oh, this last one's being tricky. Here we go. What a beautiful colour we've got going here. And here it goes. And look at that. Tie-dye with rust dyeing. So if you want to know any more about the Reactor crystals and what else you can do with them, we've done 3 different things today. We've got the tie-dye, we've got painting it on, so that you're in control of the paint marks and getting a very painterly effect, or we've got putting the Reactor crystal on first and then spraying on the rest on top. So it gives you the most amazing variation on what you can now do. So rust dyeing is not just about rusty objects anymore. How about it? Rust dyeing with no rust in sight. It's stunning. I love it.